Welcome to the AfroEdtech Enthusiast Podcast. Super happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm also happy to have you here as well.
Awesome. Viewers, welcome to another exciting episode of the AfroEdtech Enthusiasts, specifically African EdTech Voices. On today's episode, we have an exciting, innovative, I would say two words are popping in my mind now: passionate, committed individual who is making waves in the edtech space. He's from Ghana, and just paying attention to him in the space for a bit just made me go. I had to speak to him. So welcome, Timothy, again.
Thank you very much. I'm also happy to be
Timothy,
here.
why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? Wow, that's a very interesting question. I guess it's how I grew up. See, I grew up from a house full of books. Yeah, so when I wake up, that's all I see. I see books. But fortunately for me, I also had a very interesting experience in Kumasi.
Okay.
My learning has been, I'm a very fast learner.
Mhm.
The type of person that, you just have to teach me, just a bit of it. And I could just, run with it and actually explore the rest of it. I'm doing what I'm doing because I think we should have a better way of knowing how to help students.
Okay.
Because like I said, I was fortunate because I come from a background where there was always books. So my mind is easily adaptable.
Okay.
But then I sat in the same class with people who sometimes didn't understand some of the lessons, and I didn't understand why. Even to this date, I think in 2020, my friend told me that he read a book. I said, "Oh, that book is amazing," and then he told me that he doesn't understand. I didn't understand why he didn't understand it. No, seriously, I have never heard that before. That I've read a book and I didn't understand. I'm like, wow, that means that we need to do more in order to help students. And for me, students have been since our inception, students have been our major viewpoint for growth. Because I came to a crossroad where I realized that we don't have a lot of engineers in Ghana, especially software engineers. Back in 2018, 2019, 2017, not a lot of software engineers. So I made it a task for myself to go out there and train people and put them out there. I've trained over 60, 70 guys. Yeah, technology guys. Legon, KNUST, Valley View University. I've trained quite a lot of people. So my passion for this education has been something that, has been with me for a very long time. Yeah. And that's why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because in the end, I think everybody should be able to, I believe that everybody should be able to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's what I believe. And the fact that some people are not able to do it because they were not able to acquire the required skills, have the competencies, makes it a problem for me. Because then, and it makes a problem for everybody else, because at the end of the day, we need people who have the required skills, the competencies in order for them to be, good adults in our society. And for me, that is my banter. That's why I'm doing it. Because I want us to have a society with people who have the required skills, who can contribute to society. And that's the thing for me.
Beyond having that early exposure to books, what other influences would you say, has really informed the path that you are on? Because I'm hearing a lot of deep, stuff. I'm hearing you, and it's more, oh, okay, this is what I want to do, and it's not the pretty much superfluous stuff that we hear from time to time.
Yeah.
So aside that early exposure to books, are there any other influences, maybe parents, whatever?
Yeah, I think yes, like I said, parents is one, but I won't attribute much of that to parents and family background, which played a key role in how I grew up. But when I was in uni, I dropped out
Okay.
because when I was in year 1, my lecturer who came in year 1, who taught me C++. I mean, I was already doing C++ before I even went to uni, because I was already working. I was doing government projects before I even went to uni.
Interesting.
Yeah, you can understand. I mean, I got into computers back in 1997. So we did quite a lot of work in the area of databases, systems, networks. That also shaped, how I wanted to approach the solution. Because from the background that I have in relation to work, I've worked for Tema Metropolitan Assembly, Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, Accra Metropolitan Assembly, Ghana Airports, Ministry of Lands. Plus, I have another set of work that I've done in the private space as well.
Okay.
We've done a lot of work in the private space for very large corporations, some of which I don't want to mention in this conversation. But those are the things that influenced why I think that technology would be the best way to move forward when it comes to education. And when we even started thinking about this, the Ghanaian mentality was not even at that level.
Okay.
Yes. Because when we started talking about, cloud technology, that 2016, 2017, that's when we started talking about these things. The Ghanaian mentality was not even there. So now you can think about it now. Now we assume that, yes, the mentality has grown. You understand? And we need to keep pushing because there's still more room for that growth. I mean, think about parents and their behavior towards educational technology.
Yeah.
Parents have to be aware of it. They need to be informed about it so that their behavior towards it will be different. Because if they start interacting differently with education technology and start finding out exactly how it's going to benefit my child, then the approach is different.
Okay.
You understand? So, in relation to my background, what influenced it some more is, I think, it's like the more you decide that you want to solve people's problems for them, the more they bring you problems. So you kept going on and on and on. Sometimes you are not aware of it. And then all you realize is that you have created something. So my background itself was influenced by my family. The second one was how much work that we put into, the fact that we really, really wanted to, create something out there.
Interesting. Really, really interesting. But there's something I want to touch on. I want you to unpack a bit. The bits about it looks like you immediately found interest in coding and stuff like that.
Computers.
Considering we are a culture that I would say we are getting into it.
Slowly.
It's
We're
now
getting
becoming
there.
a thing. Where did that come from?
So the first time I saw a computer, I think it was back in 1994.
Okay.
I was like, what is this?
Who bought it?
I saw it in my cousin's house. My cousins, one of our cousins' home, they had this computer, and mostly computers are bought and then they are covered. They wrap it with white. Normally I really don't understand why they wrap it with white something.
Jay-Z's can't relate.
Yeah. They wrap it in white. The computer is there, but it's covered in white. So if you want to use it, you remove the white. You do whatever. When you finish, you close it.
Keep taking my mind back.
Yeah, I know, right? So come to think about it, you see, the first thing was my cousin. They had a computer. Back then it was before even Windows 95. Secondary school. At the Sadel. We had computers. Yes. But just that it was Windows 3.1, Windows 3.2. So I mean we were taken into the lab to go and play around the lab. What would we do? We would use paint. I mean, always we would do paint.
Yeah.
But then when I came back home, my cousins had acquired a computer, and I was like, this thing, I need to figure out exactly what it is. So in my cousin's house, I spent lots of time with it. We didn't have it in our home, but God being so good, that following summer, my uncle bought us a huge computer.
Yeah.
Wow, that became like every day I'm behind.
What brand? I'm sure it was a deal.
It was a tiny one. They call it tiny.
Oh, okay.
It was huge, 21-inch, huge. Very huge machine. I spent a
Interesting.
lot of time with that. Yeah, before I even went to uni, I spent a lot of time with the computer, and I developed a lot of programming because then the first objective of my programming was to figure out how I could use that to teach people how to use computers, because that's at the time too. There were not a lot of people who know these things. So the objective has always been that how do people get to know these things and know it better? So my first program I actually wrote was a small DOS program that can teach somebody how to use MS-DOS. That was my first program. Yeah, that was the very first program that I built. So, I mean, access to technology is very, very important. I mean, I asked myself a question: if we didn't have access to the technology, what would have happened? So I always think of people having access, because the fact that a child can even see that the computer is there and the possibility that it's working, your mind becomes something different. Now you want to the inquisitiveness now begins to build. I was an inquisitive child. Yes, I wanted to find out what is this, how it works. Oh, so I spent a lot of time with the computer. I spent so much time with the computer. My grandmother was so upset with me sometimes. I don't eat sometimes, and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I mean, even all the way to when I started even consulting with computers, my family still didn't understand what work I was doing.
Yeah.
Yes, because they don't see anything. All they see is I'm going up and down. I go, I come, I go, I come. They don't understand that.
Yeah.
So what do you do? They don't get it because their time has passed.
Well,
yes,
to put it slightly.
yes, their time has passed.
Yeah.
So they cannot think past what I was doing, because all they see me is I'm inside my room.
Yeah.
How am I working? How is it that I'm working but I'm inside my room? So, I mean, my background in relation to having access, the fact that we had access to a computer is a plus. It means that access is very important in education.
I mean, we're having a conversation, and I am, I would say that you embody the Ubuntu spirits.
Yeah.
Right? And quite strongly as well, because I'm hearing you speak and I'm wondering, why is it that with every curiosity that you decided to explore, it's always, I want to explore so I tell other people or make other people aware as well.
Exactly.
It doesn't.
Because I don't know, but I believe in the fact that we don't know everything. Somebody has to take the step to learn. So my objective, even in relation to entrepreneurship, was to go through every single step of the way, so that I can hold someone's hand and tell the person that let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, because I have gotten that experience.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you going to teach somebody something when you yourself, you don't have that experience?
Right.
And I think that's where we also have a problem when it comes to teacher-student relationship. I started in a classroom where it's so easy to, I would say that I'm a different kind of student. It's so easy for me to grab anything because all the teacher wants is a response that the teacher has given. So for me, once I understood that mechanics, I really don't have to sit in a classroom. There's no point. But then I also come to understand one factor: the teacher-student relationship. That relationship, the teacher should have an experience with what they're doing. It makes it easier for them to teach the student. If the teacher is also teaching the student, in a vacuum, like with the student doesn't see exactly what is going on, it's all in the air.
Yeah.
How will the students relate? They cannot relate. What helped was, whilst I was learning, I was practicing. There's nothing I learned that I don't practice. Even with building my company, I learn, I practice, I read, I focus, I practice, I read. It fails here, I do something else again, I change something. It's like that. And it's the same point that comes to personalized learning. So I have gone through personalized learning as an individual myself. So I understand it through the teacher's eyes and through the student's eyes, and how the students can benefit, from all these different points that we're raising. But if the person doesn't have the experience with that, with that conversation, it's going to be very difficult for the person to actually relate. And that is very important, especially in the teacher-student relationship. The teacher has to be exposed to the knowledge. The teacher has to be experienced in that knowledge. It is easy for the teacher to take something else. The teacher can teach maths using something different. Something that the student would understand. If you go and buy wachi, the kid that is selling the wachi, if the kid has been working with the mother day for maybe 2-3 years, you buy the wachi, the kid can compute everything for you from their head because they are used to it through the wachi.
Through that experience.
But if you send that same child to go and sit in the classroom and you give them the same computation, they will get it wrong. Because the setting doesn't allow them to think the way they are supposed to think in that environment. But if the teacher would have mentioned wachi, I'm buying wachi, you'd be surprised. That kid would go to the answer. So we need to pick that relationship and then align it with the learning. That's the only way people can grab the learning, because it's tough.
I mean, that fundamentally speaks to the whole conversation around contextual learning. Right? And that makes a whole lot of sense.
Exactly.
Interesting. Really interesting. You've got me really thinking. iKolilu.
Yes.
Tell us what that is about.
iKolilu. So iKolilu, let's say,
first of all, where did the name come from?
Well, the name, we created the name ourselves.
Okay.
Because I realized that we have the power to create anything. I mean, that's also an awareness that people would have to, come to a realization about.
Right.
The fact that they, as human beings, they have the power already. The thing is that we don't know that we have the power, so we don't utilize it. And awareness is the key. So iKolilu, the first time I saw a registration system, I was working at B Systems. There was this guy who had just finished school. I was in second year. And he came in and he had an amazing registration system that he went to the University of Ghana, and they just piled it in their library. That time was C#. I saw the system and I was like, wow. When I went back to school, there was no electronic registration. During that time, I think 2002, there was no electronic registration in Ghana, in all the universities. So when I went back to school, first I came out of school because I was broke, and I came out of school. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my auntie. I didn't tell my guy. I didn't tell anybody. I just came out of school, didn't tell anybody anything, and then I went to work at B Systems. At B Systems, I spent all my money buying Java books. For me, I have tons and tons of books. By the time I was going back to school, I only have part of my school fees. But immediately I got to school, I was just sitting down by the lab, and I'm like, I'm looking at everybody going around. I'm like, what kind of chaotic environment is this? Can't we streamline this in the software? Fortunately, my lecturers were having a discussion in another room trying to buy a registration software. As at that time, it started coming out. And I told them I could build it. They looked at my face and said, what? Are you sure? I was in second year. You? I said, yes. They should give me a try. I went home, borrowed my cousin's laptop, went back to school, went to sit down 2 weeks. And then I built an online registration software within the school network.
Okay.
But I built it with C#. By then I was very great with C# and Windows and COM. There's something called COM, component object modeling, COM and COM plus. But then when I came back home again, I was like, no, we need to be able to do something that could be used globally. So the first thing we chose was the internet. I was like, nah, the internet is the key. But even the internet wasn't up to where we wanted it to be, or what the kind of mentality or the kind of idea that we had. Because our vision, as at the time, was first to solve the basic problems for the schools, which is their basic operations, that will make them have a sound mind, get records to be able to do the things they have to do. And then the second part was to help them do what we call a data management, because you need to first solve the basic problems, get to your data, and then use that data as a basis to actually even move to AI. Because without the data, how are you going to even do the AI? What would be your basis of AI? There is no data. You wouldn't be able to do anything. So that's how iKolilu was born. It was born out of the fact that when I went to school and there was no electronic registration, I decided to build an electronic registration system. after 3 years of maintaining the system for the school, I was like, why don't we take this thing and take it to global? But then if you take university education and you take a second cycle and you take the basic education, which is primary, which is K to JHS, if you take that, the structures are different. So we need to sit down to ask ourselves questions like, hey, so how do we take all these different education systems and put it together? So we sat down and we created iKolilu with a vision to streamline communication and operation to improve educational outcomes. Because at the end of the day, we want to have people who have the skill, who have the knowledge, who can contribute to society. And that's how iKolilu was built.
So there's this thing we typically have in our circles. We have this conversation where we say that education technology essentially is supposed to improve teaching and learning in the classroom, and then also improve education administration and delivery.
Exactly.
I see how it perfectly ties in.
Yeah.
With this big goal you had in mind, and executing on it, what we now know as iKolilu, was there any moments where you thought, okay, mounting too high?
Oh, every damn day.
I'm done. I'm going home.
Every day. It's like it's daily. It's like, see, this is a madman's job. Every day. Because it gets tiring. Because then eventually, you see, I think where the friction usually will come is when you bring in people.
Okay.
Starting by yourself is easy. Bringing people is easy. Even that, you still have some trouble. But now bringing people who have no idea what you're doing and making sure that they can understand what you're doing so they can also preach what you're doing is a whole different ball game. Now, letting those people to go and bringing new people is not easy. Because there's always going to be that change where the change could be up or it could be down. What you mostly pray for is you want change that will always take you up. But you won't always get that, which is, I would say, is fortunate, because the steps that takes us down let us look back. Yes. Because if the step didn't take you down, you have bothered to look back. You wouldn't have bothered to look back because you keep going. You understand? But once you take certain steps and it doesn't go well for you, it forces you to pause and look back and ask yourself questions. How do I move from where I am to where I want to get to? What I've also discovered is that wherever you are and wherever you want to get to, the gap there is just knowledge. You just don't have the know-how that will take you to that next level. It's not the plenty that we do. It is the relevant things that we do that matters. Because if we're able to, for most of these edtech startups that are coming up, if they're able to narrow down into a specific area and we're able to focus more energy in independent areas, I think that we will find a better linking opportunity in what each one of us is doing. And that's one of the things that we encourage, because like you said, if you try to do this by yourself, you will fail. Oh yes, you will fail because it's too much work. Every single part of it is a lot of work. If you take assessments, it's a whole lot of work. Take examination, it's a whole area. People are creating content, people are trying to test students, people are trying to measure. All these bits are very, very important, and they play a very key role in how we deliver the service that we are delivering.
You've said certain things that I deeply resonate with. One is the bit about if you go the steps that take you down afford you the opportunity to
go back.
I'm even I am looking at it from the whole COVID situation.
Yeah.
Right. And how, in a sense, it forced us to say,
What is? But I mean, think about it.
you know,
Before COVID,
yeah,
I'm standing in front of teachers. I'm standing in front of the teachers, and I'm telling them that this is 2018.
yeah,
I'm advising teachers to start putting small content in presentations
yeah,
so that when you come to class, you can share it all. This is 2018.
mhm,
We're not even talking about COVID.
yeah,
2019, I'm talking to teachers about it.
mhm,
And then because in 2019, I was in a school in Kumasi, and I was telling the teachers that, hey, listen, I know you guys, when you go home, you're tired or you're not necessarily, looking at what you're doing.
yeah,
But that is wrong. You
mm,
guys have to now start paying attention to digital way of approaching your teaching.
yeah,
And then COVID comes.
mm,
Yes, because I told them that, hey, you guys, you'll be surprised that the school will be lifted into the air.
mm,
What will you do? Your presentations have to be done
online. Yeah.
Your teaching has to be done online.
Mm.
So if you don't acquaint yourself with these things, it's going to be very difficult for you. But it's not easy for everybody to know exactly how the wind of the market is blowing.
Mm.
It's only a few people who can actually only a few people in the world who can really, really, really sit down and say, like, hey, listen, this is the wind of the market.
Mhm.
And with this wind, we can sail this way.
Mm.
You understand?
Mm.
So it's very important that people get to understand that bit as well.
Interesting. Interesting. What's what's one hard truth about edtech in Africa that is not spoken of enough or spoken about enough?
You see, edtech encompasses so much. It's just so much that you may not be able to narrow it to a particular. You may have to scoop it. First of all, the key is that schools are not organized. Yes, it doesn't matter what school it is. We've worked with hundreds of schools. Schools are not organized and ready. No. And if you even think about it, all the way down to teachers who have to be certified in order for them to be able to even teach the classroom. How many teachers are certified? How many schools are following, our Education Act? The act that helps us, that binds all this framework together. How many of them are actually following compliance? How many of them are compliant? How many teachers are compliant? Somebody finishes university, they become a teacher, okay, which is fine. But are they certified? Have they been consistently learning new things, learning new ways of teaching, learning new methods of approaching teaching and learning? These are very important stuff. The schools are not organized at the moment. And they are not organized, like we said, it's all got to do with leadership. Schools have two big problems. And the first one is that they need to make money. And the second one is that they need to train somebody has dumped on them. Yeah, they have to import knowledge into the person. They don't know who the person is. They have no idea. All they have done is that they have collected money and they are trying to help shape how this individual should think. But because they are not very well organized enough, they are so focused on operations that they can't focus on the student. Because if they were properly organized, then it would be easier for them to streamline their operations and put the rest of the energy to focus on students who are not really performing. Because students who are not really performing, they are only a data set away from the ones who are performing. That's all. The difference between the student who is performing and the one who is not performing is just a data set. Now that I understand the data set that is not allowing this person to perform, for example, their background, where they come from, those have influences. How do we help shape those influences so that we can bring students who are coming from marginalized places and they can still grow? You understand? And this is the essence of, I think, this edtech space. But schools are not necessarily organized because operations alone takes a lot of their
the
thinking.
headache.
Yes. So if they are not able to streamline that operation, they can't focus on the students.
All right.
So it has become like, I mean, think about it. I'll give you two numbers, 89 and I'll give you 10. 89 is the percentage of students learners who don't acquire the necessary skills by the time they are 10 years old, by the time they finish primary school. You can understand? 10 is the percentage growth of private schools in Ghana. Even though the number of schools are increasing, the outcomes are still lower. And it's because, schools are busy even trying to find a fit in the business part of this education before you even talk about the education bit of it. So it's a double-edged sword for schools. And
one thing I'm sure of is you definitely come back for us to have
yeah,
so many bits of this conversation because there's so much to unpack. I mean, I'm resonating so strongly with a lot of the things you are saying, in that essentially, if formal education is judged, and I would say I'll judge it very much on outcomes, right?
Yeah.
And so if I go out, walk out of my house, just based off how our society is structured, how people are behaving, how things are done, the systems, frameworks for which an organized society is supposed to thrive.
Yeah.
If I see a lacking in that, then again, in varying degrees, I'm going to point it to the education system.
Exactly.
Because what's happening over there.
Yeah.
And I think just based off that, we can make that conclusion and say that across the board, from our home country in Ghana all the way to a lot of the countries across the continent, there's definitely a problem with education.
Yeah, there's a gap.
And I mean, what you've focused on, what you've narrowed down on specifically about the fact that schools are not organized, you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It's not something I really thought about, but then it just shows that there's a huge gap there that we're not paying attention to.
So I explain something to you. You see, we how iKolilu is structured is structured in such a way that teachers have the freedom. Teachers can pull their data in Excel. They can work from anywhere, and then when they are done, they just upload the information.
Okay.
Now the academic head is responsible for ensuring that all this data is collated, and then you use that as a basis to understand each student, because that's the academic head. Now that academic head will now go through this type of data, sit down with the teachers to gather a certain understanding. All this thing requires time. All this thing requires money. You understand? The schools don't have the time to sit down. The people who even run as academic heads, they don't even have the time. So you ask yourself a question whether are they doing the work because they love to do it, or they are doing it because that's the question I always ask. Are you here because you really, really want to be here, or you are here because there is no work and this is what you have to do?
Right.
If we can't solve that problem in the schools, then we can't solve any other problem, because the teacher has to be true to the nature that, listen, I want to be here, I want to help these kids. If the teacher is not true to that nature, then that will be a problem. Yes, that will be a problem. If the teacher only sees it as, oh, this is the only job I can get for now, and that I only wake up in the morning and I come, I come and teach my curriculum and I'm gone. No, that's going to be a problem. And that is why, the schools are not organized. Because the teacher who forms the center of, the real teaching has to have that willingness, that joy to say that, hey, listen, I'm coming to school. I'm coming to try and help these kids, grow. Because it's not that simple. Yeah, it's not.
Like I said again, I'm definitely calling you back to have the conversation. We have this closing tradition that we roll out, and so the last speaker had a question for you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you that question.
Okay.
And then you are also going to ask a question for the next
speaker. Okay.
So the last speaker asked this question, and he says, if you had the opportunity to replicate a well-known edtech brand, what would it be and why?
Oh, a well-known edtech brand. Yeah. Edtech is very broad. Edtech is very broad in a lot of ways. So we still have to scope it.
Yeah.
Because we don't scope it, because there are people who are training. There are people whose focus is on content. There are people whose focus is on management and administration. There are people whose focus is on, there are all kinds of focus within this space.
Which one would you pick? And why?
Which one will I pick? Well, for now, I don't think I'm going to pick any of them.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I'm not going to pick any of them is that, even including us, none of us has demonstrated that skill. But we can't demonstrate the skill without figuring out how to build a larger ecosystem, which I believe that is very important. First, for lifting the people up, and for bringing value to the market. Those two. Because we have people who do different things, which help the ecosystem. But we need to form that ecosystem very well in such a way that we can understand clearly where value is coming from and where value is going.
I like your answer. I do like your answer. It takes us back to us in our context as Africa. What's with all the actors involved, how we offering value to us to a certain standard.
A standard, right? Exactly.
Where on our end as innovators, we can plug in to deliver value
to the customer. Yes, it's very important. Because we can say that, hey, we're doing it up to a certain point, but we believe that other people who bring other services that could complement what we're doing could explode the entire ecosystem.
Right.
We've done services that we will stop doing it because we think that, hey, if somebody else is doing this and they're focused on it, it will bring more value to the market because it's a market. If you try to take the different pieces of it and you try to do everything, you will sell yourself short.
Timothy, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and I'm saying it again. It's the third time I'm saying it. I'm definitely going to bring you back.
Yes.
Viewers, I'm sure you picked up lots of gems, especially EdTech founders, etc., and all of the ecosystem players, including founders and so on and so forth. I'm sure you picked up something from the conversation I've had with Timothy Owusu, the founder and CEO at iKolilu. Oh Lord, I've written quite a lot. Anyway, any last words? Any last words for as we wrap up?
Well, I mean, what I would say is the edtech ecosystem is still ripening. It's not ripe yet. It's still ripening. We still need more players in the space. Africa is a large market. I mean, think
2 billion.
Africa is a large market. So we shouldn't limit ourselves to the school in Teshi or the school in Nungwa or the school in Kaneshi or the school in East Legon. No. We should think very, very wide.
Right.
We should think Africa. When we are thinking, we should not think Ghana. No. Africa. What are we doing that will carry a lot of value across Africa? That's it.
Timothy, thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to having you again. Ladies and gentlemen, this was really good, viewers. Please comment, like, subscribe. This was very, very good. I'm sure if you have any questions, if you have any comments on what you've heard so far, please. We are building this community. I remember I mentioned that the AfroEdtech Enthusiast is not, just any organization. It's a whole movement. We are building a beautiful ecosystem of people who are passionate about education and technology. Until same time next episode, please stay safe.